Huh?
Hey, what the hell are you doing here again?
I just made the level with shaders.
Oh, you made the level again. I remember the last time you used the camera triggers and it was such a
I
mess.
promise you it's not bad anymore. Please just try my level.
I hope you didn't actually make anything bad this time.
Huh. Is this only that you made?
Uh-huh. This is the only shader that I used.
Okay, I mean, it shouldn't be bad, I think. It seems to be like a normal launch. Alright, let's play it, I guess. Oh, what the hell did you do? What is this?
Shaders are a new thing that has been added in the 2.2 update. You can use them to make boring looking levels look cinematic, glitchy, or even like a retro game. There are quite a bit of them, and I'm going to talk about them each in detail. But first, let's get one thing out of the way. Shader isn't a shader editor or whatever, it is actually just a limiter that limits to what layer shaders can actually affect the level. You can disable all the shaders with just this checkbox. No player particles checkbox will make the shaders not affect the player's emitted particles whatsoever, and these layers here, you can assign a range from what layer to what layer you want the shaders to affect. Now, let's talk about the others. Chromatic is a shader that divides colors into separate layers. If you want the shader to actually work, you must check one of these checkboxes, or both of them if you want to. You can change the distance of the color separation on x-axis and y-axis. I don't know what relative actually does. Shockwave makes a shockwave. You can change the speed, the strength of how intense the wave has to be, thickness on how thick the wave must be, wave width on how wide the wave has to be. Lower values make the wave thinner, and bigger values of course make wider waves. Fade in and fade out change the feathering of shockwave when it's starting and when it's ending. Time offset offsets the start of the shockwave. Max size changes the actual size of the whole shockwave. Invert makes the shockwave go in instead of outward. You'll see inner and outer parameters appear, which you can use to change the radius of the inside and the outside. Target makes the shockwave emit from the target instead of the screen. Relative by the instructions say that it makes the effect follow screen movement, but I don't really see the difference. Also, you can offset the shader on x-axis and y-axis, and also there's anime checkbox, but I think it has to do something with the new keyframes, which I'm not gonna really talk about. Shockline is instead now linear instead of radial, like the shockwave. Most of the parameters are the same from the shockwave, but there are some new things as well. Flip flips the line on the other side like you do with the paper, and rotate rotates the line by 90 degrees. Dual makes two lines emit instead of just one. Glitch creates a glitch effect. You can change the fade time, the strength of the glitch, speed, but now we have parameters for slice and cold, which is probably color. Slice is the visible screen tear, which sort of cuts the screen into two sides. You can change the height of it or set it to 0 if you don't want it to be visible whatsoever, and the offset of the slice to make the other screen side move from the slice, or just not have it completely. Color max offset is basically like in a chromatic shader, which offsets the color in certain direction. Chromatic glitch is the combination of the two previous shaders, chromatic and glitch. It divides colors into layers and also adds this weird looking glitch effect. You can change the speed, RGB offset, which is just this, strength, fade time, line thickness of the gray lines, segment height, which changes each segment's gap, line strength, which is basically the opacity of the lines. You can disable the shader with this checkbox. Now we have the relative position, which makes the shader stick to the level like this. Pixelate shader pixelates things, basically. Again, like in a chromatic effect, you can either just activate one of these, use X or use Y checkboxes, or both of them. It will look blurry if you use high values, so you can check this box so the pixels are actually sharp instead of blurry. Snap to grid will make the pixels snap to the grid rather than follow the camera. And fun fact, pixels in full name is actually picture elements. Lens circle makes this kind of a black vignette. You can change the size, the feathering of the inner circle with fade, fade time, strength, which is the opacity of the circle, offset the lens circle as well. You can also assign the center for the circle with the sender ID. Either you apply the sender to a player or another object with a group ID. Tint channel allows you to set a color for the circle. Channel number represents the color channel you just selected. Also, the easing style of how the circle comes in. You can change that. Radial blur blurs everything in a circle, basically. You can change the size, fade time, offset, intensity does nothing? You can also change the feathering of the blur with fade. You can also assign the target to be the center of the radial blur. Again, either the player or another object. And empty only does nothing, I think. I don't really know. And the same way for the reference channel, to be honest. Motion blur blurs everything out in certain direction. You can set in what direction the motion blur must blur out, fade time, and the feathering of the shader. You can also apply dual direction, so the motion blur blurs two sides instead of one. Like if you, for example, have Y only, then it will blur out the upside and the downside, as well as the starting point of the motion blur with the target ID, either an object player or the center, which makes the motion blur an actual motion blur. Try it out in platformer mode. Move around your character with the center assigned and you'll see how that motion blur works. And these don't do anything, by the way. I tried them, but they don't do anything for some reason. Bulge makes a bulge on your screen. You can change the amount of the bulge you want, offset the size of the bulge with the radius, fade time, easing, and as well set a target. Pinch is the opposite of the bulge. You can change the pinch amount with the x-axis and y-axis, but to actually make the pinch work, you must set a radius, which is the size of the pinch. Modifier modifies the amount the pinch should do. It's like removing some of the effect away. There's also fade time, easing, and target. No questions about it whatsoever. Grayscale makes everything monochrome. Currently just black and white. You can change the amount with the target slider, fade time and easing, and also tint channel to make the grayscale not so grayscale anymore. Basically assign a different color to it. Use lump makes bright things darker and darker things brighter? That is based on what I saw. Sepia makes everything look classy or just this golden color. You can change the target amount, fade time, and easing of course. Invert color inverts the colors. You can set the invert amount with the target, fade time, easing, and change the invert color values. If you want the changes to be visible, you must check the Edit RGB checkbox. You can now enter values that are higher than 1, but you can restrict that with Clamp RGB, which basically restricts it to the maximum of 1. And Tween RGB makes the color inverting transition a lot smoother, by this example here. Hue changes the hue of the colors, just like in the HSV channel, this slider right here. You can change the degrees to change the color, as well you can change the fade time and easing. Edit color allows you to edit colors. You can change the fade time, but this is where you actually change the colors. CR, CG, and CB change the amount of tint each color must tint, while BR, BG, and BB changes the brightness of the colors. Just try it out, you know? And lastly, split screen. It adds more screens than just one. With target X and Y, you can add a screen amount and change the screen size. Fade time and easing is also here, no need for an explanation. Phew. Finally, we reached the end. I'm kinda tired from talking in this whole thing, but anyways, here we go. An explanatory video about the new shaders in the 2.2 update. Make sure to give a like and also subscribe for more tutorials like these. Goodbye! Hey, if you want to make that bulge effect at the start of the video, here's how you do it. You basically add a bulge shader, set the bulge to like 100, and lastly fade time to like a 25. Enjoy!